Ridership, as I said, doesn't this guy look happy? I like the picture, but he just looks so unhappy, that kid. I don't know. He's going to school probably. It's like, I don't want to go to school. But anyway, we were on a great trend through 2008. And for 06, 07, and 08, we were one of the fastest growing transit systems by ridership in the United States. Bottom fell out a little bit, recession, fewer jobs, people have less money, less economic activity, ridership goes down for a couple years, ridership's right back up. So last year we ended the year with our second highest ridership in our history. We'll probably come pretty darn close to record ridership this year, depending on what goes on in the economy and the system. So in the context of these gaps, demand's increasing. And I'm probably preaching largely to the choir of the folks in the room and what that means. But we need to keep messaging this. We need to keep telling people that we're a vital part of the economic development and economic health of this region, of this county, and really of the state, since so many goods and services that feed the economy of this state come through this region, come through King County. Oops, second highest ridership in history. So some other factoids. About 380,000 daily trips on the metro system alone. And incidentally, when you add in community transit and Sound Transit, primarily Sound Transit ridership, I think the total ridership in King County for transit, I should have written that down, is I think 143 million. And Sound Transit ridership's been growing at an even faster rate as Link continues to settle in. The service increases from regional express buses coming from ST2. So transit works in this county and is working in a lot of respects better than ever, although it's pretty darn crowded on a lot of our services. We estimate that we take about 175,000 cars off the road every day with our transit system, let alone the space that creates to move goods and services and people throughout this county, climate issues as well, energy management issues. If you're interested, the folks that really love data, go to the Texas Transportation Institute's 2012 report that compares urban areas throughout the United States. Many of you have probably seen that or read about it before. Estimates that the Seattle region saves about $367 million annually as a result of the transit system we have in place. So bang for your buck. Those tax dollars we're putting towards this system are returning real benefits, tangible benefits to the economy. Over 1,500 business accounts. I see my friend Josh Kavanaugh in the back of the room with UW, who's done a masterful job in keeping the Husky Pass going for us. That's one of the strengths of our system. Most of the prepaid media, prepaid Orca cards in this region are from business accounts. So we have this great relationship with the business community that's really part of the strength of the transit system, really the strength of the transportation network. But they rely on us as well. They rely on us to transport their employees, their students, and so forth every day. Mention the CRC expires. We're looking at the 17% cuts. County Council adopted our 2013-14 budget in the fall last year in November. That budget assumes that in September of 2014, Metro will reduce 150,000 hours of service, and then in 2015, the remaining roughly 450,000 hours of service. One sec. 150,000 hour cut in the context of 3.5 million service hours. Is that a lot? Doesn't necessarily seem like a lot. That would be the biggest cut in the history of this organization. And as I said, through the September 29th service change, where we reallocated those 100,000 hours, we robbed Peter to pay Paul. We wouldn't be robbing Peter to pay Paul. We're just robbing Peter. We're just taking it all away. We're going to be releasing our new service guidelines report at the end of March, as directed by Council, that will show ridership and performance on every route in the system, consistent or compared to our guidelines as of spring of last year, the most recent data we have for that report. That'll show the bottom 25% services. So when we start talking about what would be cut, well, you might say all those the bottom 25 goes away. And incidentally, the bottom 25% represents only about 9 or 10% of our service hours. So if you think about it, That whole 25% list would just go, plus a lot more, which is meat and bone. And there, I don't think we're even taking off the fat in the system. There's no easy cuts to take. People are using our services. Anyhow, 17% of the system, it's hard to gauge exactly what that would mean, because when you come down to it, I don't know that we would, like sequester that took effect today. I don't think we would whack it so, black and white, just start from the bottom and on up. We do our best to be as careful with it. But the bottom line is, because of the integration of our network, we're probably going to affect about 70% of our riders. Some people will lose their service. Some people are going to have to walk further for their service. A lot of people are going to have less frequent service. A lot of buses will be much more crowded. Hence, loose estimate, we think about 70% of our ridership would be negatively affected by the cuts. Now, I want to transition to another fun thing, but it's also a looming problem, and I think it, frankly, verges on a looming disaster. A few years ago, we entered into a contract with State DOT for $32 million to provide transit service mitigation for the first stage of the construction project on the viaduct, the Holgate to King section, because it was understood by the state engineers, by the city DOT, and by Metro that all this disruption is going to slow down transit, it's going to slow down traffic. Slow transit costs money. And if you don't compensate for the slower transit, there is less transit. But also the less capacity means, is there a way to encourage people to take transit instead of driving to help manage the capacity of the state's roadway? Manage the capacity of the state's roadway. Capacity management, really, really important. So they agreed. And out of the whole viaduct tunnel budget, $32 million was set aside for the mitigation program. You can see where in the bullets where we put the service. Most of the service was focused on the West Seattle Bridge corridor, services that serve West Seattle, the Del Ridge corridor, all the way into Burien White Center area. Problem is, funding expires in June 2014, 2 years before the tunnel is supposed to open. And that's because we were supposed to have a plan that then Executive Ron Sims, then Mayor Nichols, and then Governor Gregoire all signed in January of 2009, laying out the roles and responsibilities for the project, which would have included the state granting Metro a 1% motor vehicle excise tax, in large part to finance the second portion of the construction and permanently the need to manage capacity on the state roadway, where that tunnel provides less capacity and there's no midtown exit entrance for our buses, as there is now, Columbia Seneca area. That never happened. So there's a big, big gap. And that service is at risk of going away in a little over 1 year. Now, what's happened with that mitigation service? Well, remarkably, guess what? It worked. It worked. It's a real win-win story. Transit ridership, 17,000 daily rides additional on the services that we invested in. 25,000 fewer vehicle trips every day on the 99 corridor. Kind of works. You have a theory, more congestion, less capacity, give people better transit service, people will choose better transit service. Theory, fact. It works. It's all going to go away in June 2014 unless the state finds the money to keep that service at least through 2016. And that's about $17 million, by the way. And we've been talking to people for a long time, actually, Governor Gregoire's office and now with Governor Inslee, as well as legislators. If this goes away, that's about 45,000 hours of service. PUFTA goes away in June 2014. What's going to happen? I had a couple photos there of crowded buses. Any of you from West Seattle ever take the C line? It's crowded. It's crowded at night, particularly coming back. It's going to be a lot more crowded. A lot of those routes, a lot more crowded. And the tragedy of it all, it's going to be so crowded, a lot of those people are going to give up on transit. And they're going to try to get downtown another way, or even worse, from Seattle's point of view, they're going to stop coming downtown. So this has the attention of the City Hall certainly. It's got the attention of the Downtown Seattle Association. I hope it has the attention of lots of businesses downtown. Because at the end of the day, if access to downtown starts deteriorating because people just can't get in and out of this town, it's going to undermine ultimately the health of Seattle going forward. What's happened in this corridor, we've seen a 22% increase in ridership compared to during the same period of time, 6% growth. Again, put better transit out there, more people are going to use it. You got a win-win situation for managing the capacity of the state's roadway. Now, of course, what else happens in 2016 when the tunnel opens? Does anyone else know? Tolls. There's going to be a toll in that roadway. The toll is going to divert more traffic onto city streets. And the more traffic on city streets clogs up city streets and slows our buses down. So we're working really hard with Peter Hahn and SDOT and the city on what our pathway is going to be for the buses. But again, that's another issue that we have to figure out how to mitigate. And the state's got to be in the game on that. It's their facility, they're tolling. The city's got to be in the game. We need to be in the game. In partnership, we need to figure out how to keep Seattle moving, how to manage this corridor. Nevertheless, we're going to need the service hours to do it. And the service hours just aren't there, let alone the first part of this presentation, if we cut 17% of service. But in particular for this corridor, we need to deal with it. So finally, there's some handouts over there. If you didn't get them, pick them up on your way out that talk about our situation here in King County and proposals that we've made. At the beginning of January, I believe, or late December, King County Executive Constantine, Mayor McGinn, and representatives of the Sound City Association, formerly known as the Suburban Cities Association, made a proposal to the state to fund transit and road needs, public works needs in King County. It would have foreseen an 8-cent gas tax increase, $40 councilmanic TBD vehicle fee, and 1.5% motor vehicle excise tax. Metro would have benefited from this, or would benefit from this if this particular proposal were to be adopted by the state. Now, by the way, we're at 0.9% sales tax at Metro. We're at our legislative cap. We cannot generate, other than through the fare box, we cannot generate any new revenue. We need authority from the state to develop new revenue sources. This is right now our preferred source. Metro would get 60% of the 1.5%. MVET, that would be about $85 million a year in the first year, maybe growing to $90 million. If you remember that wedge chart that I showed you, it gets into the yellow area, but not too far into it, not even into the blue, the PSRC number. Some of this is to bail out our fading county unincorporated roads department. Now, I've been down in Olympia for the last 3 weeks with my colleague, the director of the roads division, talking about their plight. And while this is, you're not necessarily the crowd to be worried about unincorporated roads, their financing system's worse than ours. With the way property tax works, caps on property tax, annexations, the county's going to start abandoning bridges and roads in unincorporated King County. One of the wealthiest counties in the United States, certainly the wealthiest county in this state, abandoning bridges and roads. Imagine that. That's kind of pathetic. At the end of the day, that's just the evils of deferred maintenance as well. Defer it, defer it, defer it, and then eventually someone will figure out how to fix it. It'll cost 100 times more to fix it years from now than it would to maintain it today. So there are other bills out there. You probably know that House Transportation Chair Judy Clyburn 2 weeks ago put a bill out, different bill. It would be for statewide funding as well as a local option motor vehicle excise tax. Representative Clyburn's bill would come close to, if everything were enacted, including the local option motor vehicle excise tax, would bring Metro close to at least the magic $75 million number, but not enough. Certainly not enough to grow. Many of you probably are watching what's going on in Olympia. It's going to be a very, very tough road to hoe. Very tough road to hoe. The Senate's controlled by one party, the House is controlled by the other. So we'll see. Our executive branch and our legislative branch are working very, very hard down in Olympia to get traction on our needs going forward. It's critical. If nothing happens in this session, I'll leave you with this and then open up for Q&A. If nothing happens in this session, given the way that our budget is set up for September 2014 service cuts, we will start going out in the community probably in the late fall beginning the public process of identifying exactly what we're going to propose to cut. We'll be out this time next year, probably having public hearings, getting ready to transmit legislation to the county council that will have to adopt those 150,000 hours in cuts probably in May or June of next year. So if nothing happens in this session, we're going to have to start revving up the community about what it's going to look like going forward. I pledge to you, though, as managing the organization, we continue to do everything we can, and we will, try to minimize the impact of those cuts by being as efficient as we can. But we're in our 5th year of austere budgets. And you can't cut out with going to the bone. You know, most of the people that work for us are bus drivers and mechanics, but all the other people at Metro are there to help make the total transit product. You know, we don't have a bunch of people running around doing things that are not really of value to the system. So at the end of the day, those cutbacks will not only be service on the road, but our ability to be responsive to this broader community in providing a classy product. The product will be less, and the product we're at risk of being worse from a quality perspective.